We need to get this vehicle moving immediately. We are already behind schedule.
No need to rush. Everything is under control. Just take a breath and relax.
We need to secure the perimeter before dark. My team is ready to assist. But we need your approval first.
The notice was sitting under my windshield wiper when I walked outside that morning. It said the HOA considered my Land Rover a violation and demanded it be removed. Linda showed up before I could even finish my coffee. She pointed at my Land Rover like she had already decided how this was going to end. I read the paperwork twice. Nothing in it gave the HOA authority to tow a privately owned vehicle from my own land. Linda stepped away and made a phone call. A few minutes later, she returned with a smile that told me she thought she had won. Then the sheriff's SUV rolled onto the road outside my workshop. Linda walked toward the deputy as if she had personally summoned him to settle the matter. The deputy didn't argue with her. Instead, he walked over and looked carefully at where the Land Rover was actually parked. I showed him the property records and the vehicle paperwork. His expression changed as he compared them with Linda's complaint. The deputy asked Linda one simple question. Where exactly does the HOA's authority apply? For the first time that afternoon, Linda didn't have an immediate answer. The property line was clear. The Land Rover was completely inside my property, exactly where I had parked it. Linda's confidence disappeared almost instantly. She realized the situation wasn't going the way she had planned. Then the deputy looked closely at the Land Rover itself. He asked me where I had gotten it and how long I had owned it. I told him the Land Rover had been part of my life for decades. It wasn't abandoned, damaged, or blocking anyone. It was a carefully maintained piece of my history. The deputy studied me for a moment longer than usual. Then something about my name seemed to click with him. He asked if I had ever served in the military. I paused before answering because I hadn't expected that question at all. I simply told him I had served in the United States Navy. I never mentioned it because I didn't think a neighbor needed my military history to respect my property. The deputy's entire posture changed. He recognized the name from his own years of service and looked at me with unmistakable respect. Linda looked from the deputy to me and suddenly understood what she had walked into. The tow truck she expected was no longer the center of the conversation. The deputy made it clear there was no legal reason to tow the Land Rover. Linda had called the sheriff, but the sheriff wasn't there to enforce an HOA demand. No tow truck came onto my property. The Land Rover stayed exactly where it had been all along. Before leaving, the deputy asked me a few questions about my service. Our conversation had nothing to do with the HOA anymore. Then the deputy stepped back, straightened his posture, and raised his hand in salute. Linda stood completely speechless as he saluted me in front of her. I returned the gesture with the same quiet respect. It wasn't about winning an argument. It was about honoring people who had served. Linda finally walked away without another argument. Her clipboard was still in her hand, but her confidence was gone. The deputy gave me one final nod before getting back into his SUV. Then he drove away, leaving my property exactly as he had found it. For the first time all day, the property was quiet again. I looked at the Land Rover and couldn't help but smile. That Land Rover had survived decades, countless roads, and more memories than I could ever explain. No HOA notice could change what it meant to me. The HOA had called the sheriff, expecting him to remove my Land Rover. Instead, he left after saluting the man standing beside it. Sometimes the strongest response isn't anger. It's simply standing your ground with dignity. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from?